Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Yakid Yeshua. It's Michael here, and today I want to address my purpose for creating this channel. One of my biggest goals, and in order to really properly do that, I think I should start with explaining the biggest problem that I see, especially with the Messianics, but also with nominal Christians. Um, and to really articulate this, allow me to give you a scenario that I've seen far too often, and I call it the newcomer phenomenon. And I guess this is most notable in Messianic churches, but you have somebody that shows up, from Baptist or whatever, and the first year, they experience all sorts of growth. The first year they're getting all this growth, they're getting all this new information, everything's new. I guess you could call it a honeymoon period or whatnot. But my trouble isn't with all that growth. I mean, that's great. Who doesn't want to grow? But then it's like they just fall off a cliff. It's like they have all this growth and then there's just nothing. It's like they just completely stagnate. And it's that stagnation that I think is a huge problem. Uh, for me personally, though, in my own experience, I had to reflect on this and recollect on it because, I've had some stagnations. I haven't had steady growth, but, you know, even if my growth wasn't steady, several years down the road, I'm still growing. I'm still learning, and I noticed that some other people that I know are still learning and growing. Well, other people aren't. And in my journey, I didn't grow because of the environment that I was in. I grew because of the will of God. And that's one of my firm beliefs is that my growth was most definitely the will of God, but also when it came to other people, what they were doing is they were assisting in my growth. So they weren't responsible for my growth, they weren't creating my growth, they were just there assisting. And that's, I think, the right view to have of other people is that they won't make you grow, but they can help. I mean, I hope, that's part of my goal here. That's definitely my goal is that I want to help you grow. That's my goal. I'm trying to assist people, but I can't make you grow. The old adage, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. Well, it's true in growth. Now, to kind of further elaborate this problem, I also want to give you another one of my perspectives. So, for me, a teacher in the faith is exactly the same as a teacher in school. And, what do I mean by that? Well, let's look at school teachers, right? You have elementary, middle, high school, everyone, or most people have been through this, at least here in the States. And what is the school supposed to do? Well, it's supposed to prepare you for life. Now, in recent years, it may not have been doing quite as good, but a long time ago, that was the whole purpose of school was to prepare you for life, to teach you things, to raise up people and to equip them to function on their own. Nobody was supposed to stay in school forever. I guess unless you become a teacher, but you're on the other side. No one's supposed to be a student forever. And, in the faith, it's supposed to be the same way, but allow me to first give an example. Now, in school, the traditional school, it's like mathematics. Now, this growth phenomenon, I think I can use math to really explain it, in that when everyone first starts to learn math, you got to learn your times tables. 2 times 2 is 4, 3 times 3 is 9. And, you memorize this. Me as a kid, I remember memorizing up to 12 times 12, which is 144. I've been pretty good at math. But everyone's supposed to memorize these things. And so whenever you come across a problem, 3 times 3, oh, that's 9. You could just do that. But eventually, they switch tactics. They no longer just have you memorizing the times tables. They begin to teach the students, okay, this is how the multiplication actually works, right? Addition is a little bit more straightforward, but they eventually teach you how to do like long multiplication and long division, And the reason they do that, and I'll put an example up here on the screen of 128 times 128. Now, to simply memorize 128 times 128, well, that's a lot of work to just keep memorizing all the numbers up to there. That'd be a lot to memorize. However, if you can know how to do, longer multiplication and slowly work out the problem, then you'll be able to do any kind of multiplication. Whenever you come across multiplication, you'll be able to do it. And that's the goal of school. It's to not just fill your head with knowledge, the times tables and everything, but to get you to the point where whenever you're in a situation where you need to do math, and there's lots of situations, you go into the store, well, you got to buy stuff. Well, then you got to do math, to figure out the prices. Or if you're building construction, if you're doing construction, there's all sorts of math to be done in construction. And everyone would consider school to have failed you if all you were able to do is just do 12 times 12 and you weren't able to do 128 times 128. I mean, who's going to argue with me on this point? But it's the same thing in the faith. And in the faith, for me, the real beginning of learning is teaching people, strong, accurate definitions. And so, and it also goes into from individual words into verses, and in verses, strong, accurate definitions of verses. Now, from there, you eventually had to teach people how to break it down, how to do cross-referencing, how to look at the original language, and try and get some of your own understanding so that people can then go to any other verse in the Bible and come up with their own, opinion on it, or look at other words in the Bible and say, well, what does this really mean in this context? And this is the great failure to me in the church. They never teach people to think for themselves. All they do is expect you to do the memorization. They'll bring out some fact or some interesting, interpretation, and they constantly fill your head with these things. But it's like just expanding your times tables, It's like, oh, now you know 13 times 13. Well, great. But if you still can't do mathematics the hard way, right, the long way, you're not really able to do math. So, in the church, it's the same way. If all of your understanding is just the memorization of all these bits and pieces, well, you don't really know how to read Scripture and understand it for yourself. And if the only way you can understand Scripture is by quoting someone else's commentary, if your only response is, oh, well, this person said this and that's what it means, then you're illiterate. You can't read it for yourself. All you can read and understand is the commentary on it. So when it comes to understanding the Bible or reading the Bible, you're completely illiterate. You can't read it all. You can't understand it all. And that's a huge problem. And I think that's what separates people, because having the skill to actually read and understand for yourself and to not be dependent upon others for interpretation, that's a key critical skill to make you grow or to let you to continue to grow. But I just want to address something here real quick. I know that there's someone that's going to say, well, what if I listen to multiple people? And, because you listen to one person and you're going to be limited by that one person's understanding. And, well, what if I listen to a dozen people? Well, that's great to listen to a dozen people, but it's still going to limit you. It's still going to hold you back, because for you to really grow to your full potential and to be fully yourself, you got to do it yourself. You have to, understand things for yourself to really meet your full potential. So it doesn't matter if you're leaning on one pastor's interpretation or 10 pastors' interpretation, although 10's better than one. You're still illiterate. You still can't read it for yourself. You're still going to be limited. The only way to really have continuous growth and to have growth that's not dependent upon others is to read for yourself. Now, sometimes you're going to get things wrong. Sometimes I get things wrong. I'm here making videos. Do I expect every single video to be perfect and everything that I say to always be right? No, absolutely not. I get things wrong all the time. I've had years of experience getting things wrong now. And, it's a lot of times only after I've gotten it wrong and, I got my, I had problems because I got something wrong, and then I go back and says, okay, that was wrong. I know that was wrong, and now I really believe this is the right thing because I've corrected a mistake from the past. But if you can't think for yourself, see, here's a key thing here. If you can't think for yourself, how do you know if someone else is right or wrong? When your pastor is preaching, or you're watching some guy online, and you're illiterate, you can't read or think for yourself, you can't understand it for yourself. How do you know they're right or wrong? This is like Joel Osteen. A lot of people listen to him. I mean, can you know if he's right or wrong? I think everyone who listens to him is illiterate. They can't read or understand the Bible for themselves, because I hear Joel Osteen preach things, to say things, says, wait a second, that doesn't really match up, well with what the scripture's actually saying or the context of the verse. And so, for me, I look at people and they don't know that what he's saying is wrong. They can't think for themselves. So I have to pose that question to everyone. I got to pose it to you. How do you know when your pastor's wrong? Because here's the secret. Your pastor is a human. He makes mistakes. Your preacher or whoever gets in that pulpit, whoever you listen to, and everybody listens to somebody. I listen to people. They're human. They're going to make a mistake. I don't care who they are. They're not going to be 100% perfect because they're not Jesus. Jesus was 100% perfect. Everyone else, the best we can do is 99, right? So everyone else messes up. Everyone else makes mistakes. But how are you going to know when they do that if you can't think for yourself? I really don't think it matters who you learn from, me included. If that person doesn't help you get to the point where you can learn and grow on your own, that person has failed you. And I have been failed many times in the past, but the Lord never fails. And I know that the Lord will help you learn and grow on your own. I know the Lord raises up believers and he brings them to maturity. But I also have seen too many pastors and priests prevent people from becoming mature. And that's, I guess, the warning of, if you've had a year of growth and then you've stagnated and you're stagnated where you are, maybe there's something there that's keeping you back. Maybe you're doing something wrong, or I would say that something's wrong. And, either you're doing something wrong or the environment is wrong, and it's not the right place for you to be. It's not a place that you really should be if you can't grow, if you're not going to develop in some way. So this, I guess, has been a little bit of a rant and a little of my personal thoughts. As always, I appreciate a like if you like this video. Subscribe as well, and leave me a comment. Let me know what you think. I appreciate any kind of feedback on these videos. This has been Michael with Yakid Yeshua. I hope you have a good week.